got to like that intro.
Yeah. That's very good.
That's very good. All right. Well, today is October 4th, 2021, and you're listening to Sovereign Mind podcast once again. And this title of this podcast this week is Money. Money. And, we want to welcome you to the podcast, and we're brought to you here by Mountaintop Media. Mm-hmm. And we would, if you'd like to consider supporting us, if you like what you hear and see, you can call our telephone number at 530-221-0101. We will be setting up a Patreon page. And
yeah, we're working on that. And if you want to call into the show,
right,
you can call 530-255-8063.
And if you're inclined to, anytime during this podcast, please, hit the like button.
The share button.
And smash
the bell for notifications.
There you have it. Let's go ahead and start off with the Tom MacDonald video. Let's play about a minute, 20 seconds of it. It's the new one. He just came out with America.
Oh, okay.
Not a big rapper myself, but the message here is very...
He's always got good messages.
He's got a good message, mm-hmm. And so... interesting guy. I don't want my grandkids to grow up to aspire to dress like him or look like him, but I think he's a stand-up guy with his message. So.
Yeah, I don't want my granddaughter to bring him home. I'm sorry. I might have a little problem there.
But I think he's on the right track as far as how the government. So whenever you're ready, Eli, go ahead and hit it.
And away we go.
Oh,
okay.
Okay, I didn't know that had ads on there.
You always got to get those in there almost.
There we go. Here we go.
Lately, USA is getting scarier. Half of the Americans I see all hate America. They hate the cops doing their best to take care of us and kneel for the flag and salt the soldiers that we're burying. I'm tired of the pissing and complaining. Why you living in America if all you do is hate it? You think it's brave to take a stand against the nation? Real bravery is dying for the right so you can say it. Dear America, what happened to Americans? Apparently no one's aware or cares that it's embarrassing. It's arrogance. Our greatest enemy was always slavery and terrorists, and now it's people in the country trying to burn the heritage. I can't help it, I just seem to see the world different. It ain't Republicans or liberals, it's mental illness. The internet is only interested in left opinions. Cancel culture's got more power lately than the First Amendment. If you don't like it, leave. We will not defund police. We don't want no riots in our neighborhoods or in the streets. We respect freedom of speech. We protect what we believe. We don't want nobody dead, so please do not tread on me. In America, your freedom ain't free. In America, got soldiers dying overseas. So America, you say what we believe. My America, I won't ever take a knee. Our freedom is the reason you can disrespect our flag. If my stars and stripes offend you, then I'll help you pack your bags. America. Does anybody know what the hell happened to the Patriots? Lately this nation is so ashamed and hating itself. Did everyone forget that people died to pay for this? Ungratefulness, United States gave everything to you just to help. I just want to celebrate Thanksgiving with my family. I don't need your help to understand it was a tragedy. Can I just be thankful for my country eating happily without you trying to guilt me for the genocide and casualties? I can't help it, I just seem to see the world different. It ain't black or white, it's conflict designed by the system. I don't need your pronouns, all I see is men and women. Kids are taking pills for fun while people can't afford prescriptions. If you don't like it, go. Hate it, then don't call it home. We don't need no violence, got no time for all you radicals. Screw your status quo, we're not animals. I won't kneel for the anthem, cause the flag is what I'm standing for. In America, your freedom ain't free. In America, got soldiers dying overseas. So America, you say what we believe. My America, I won't ever take a knee. Our freedom is the reason you can disrespect our flag. If my stars and stripes offend you, then I'll help you pack your bags. America. You can hate the government and still love the country. The fundamental values of America are country. Republicans and liberals are dumb, to put it bluntly. They're labels that they use to create chaos and corruption. You can know the history and still be proud of where you're from. Every flag around the world is covered in a little blood. We started out United States divided is what we've become. If home is where the heart is, you should show America some love. In America, your freedom ain't free. In America, got soldiers dying overseas. So America, you say what we believe. My America, I won't ever take a knee. Our freedom is the reason you can disrespect our flag. If my stars
you go.
Yeah.
Tom McDonald,
Awesome message.
like his message.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about how standing up in back of a deuce and a half and singing and going like this. I was like, well, take three.
In the military, they may do something with you if you did it, you know?
They have you do so many goofy things anyway. It's
That's
ridiculous.
true.
All right. So what I want to do is I want to start off with a couple of quotes here because we're talking about money, and a lot of this feathers into what he's saying: the divide and conquer, the strife,
Freedom.
all of it.
Yeah.
So I want to start out with a quote here from John Adams. And this, I believe, understanding money and understanding the what is behind money and the history and the makeup of our economy, because that's what we're really talking about. These are economic systems, whether it's communism, socialism, fascism, capitalism. It's all about economic systems. Mm-hmm. And John Adams said, all the perplexities, now not some of the perplexities, all of the perplexities, confusions, and distress in America arise not from defects in their Constitution or Confederation, not from want of honor or virtue, so much as the downright ignorance of the nature of coin, credit, and circulation. So that's a pretty powerful statement when you think about all of the confusion and perplexities are about not understanding the economy, coin, credit, circulation.
Right, I was going to say, even back then, coin, credit, and circulation.
Yes.
Even way back then, they understood.
So here's another
Yeah.
quote. Okay, so I've got two more quotes, and both of these are from Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson, I believe, was just the absolute brilliant. I mean, when I go back to the founders, I like Washington because he was, just a brave stand-up guy. But Jefferson was very smart. And he said, not that Washington wasn't smart, but Jefferson
I was going to say,
genius smart.
there was a few of them that were pretty smart.
They were
but
pretty smart guys,
Yeah.
most of them. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issuance of the currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and the corporations will grow up around them and will deprive the people of all their property until the children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Now, we're going into banking, and I don't want to get all conspiratorial and so forth, but I think understanding the value of understanding money, coin, credit, circulation, and the things behind that is what is essential to be a free country. Okay? Now, here's another quote from Jefferson. It says, "Paper is poverty. It is only the ghost of money and not money itself." Now, that's an interesting quote
yeah,
as well.
it is.
Because
That's a pretty cool quote,
we all
actually.
think
money
is paper.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's not money, it's the ghost of money. It's actually poverty. Paper can impoverish you. It's not real money. So when we look at those things, if you don't kind of try to read between the lines a little bit here and try to get the message that they're telling you, you're going to miss a lot of things here. So we'll start out with the central bank and go ahead and pull up the 10 platforms of the Communist Manifesto, Eli. And I want to what is a central bank? And I think that
Yeah, because I don't think a lot of people really understand what the central banking system is.
Well,
I know what they've been led to believe.
Well, let's take a look
Or
at this.
taught.
I might have to put my other glasses on here so I can read the screen a little bit. Okay, so number 5. So we started out. They asked Marx if that you could sum up, the thesis of the Communist Manifesto. It all revolves around the ability to eliminate private property. Okay, and freedom revolves around the ability to retain private property.
Yeah.
So there's a direct conflict there. Now, when we go down to number 5, it says a centralization of bank in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and exclusive monopoly. And that's basically what the Federal Reserve Act in 1913 created.
not to correct you, but it actually says centralization of credit.
Well, that's true. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you said bank, just so people, if they're reading along, understand that.
Well, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by
Right.
means of a national bank that also has the exclusive monopoly on creating currency or money.
Right.
Money would be gold and silver in the historical sense, but currency is what they're able to create. They're able to generate currency. And the rest is all about control. The government controls everything, and confiscation of property. If we go back up, it's all about abolition of the rights of inheritance, heavy progressive graduated income tax, and this is all designed to take your property. Okay. Now I've got a quote here from Vladimir Lenin, and it says, "The establishment of a central bank is 90% of a communizing a nation." So it's very important to understand this. Now you go back to what John Adams said about coin, credit, and circulation.
Right.
Without the ability to have money that can't be manipulated, you will always find that you'll lose your freedom. And that's why I said the central bank, what
Right.
Thomas Jefferson said about standing, more dangerous than standing armies, for example. And so I want to show a couple of things here, but let's bring up the U.S. debt clock. Go ahead and bring up the U.S. debt clock.
Is there enough room for all the numbers
well,
that go on
maybe,
it? I'm just asking,
And what I want to show here is this is the U.S. debt clock. If you haven't seen
Wow.
this before, now there's a
Yeah.
ton of information here. Now, if you go to the national debt at almost 29 trillion. Per citizen, that's $86,000 per citizen. Per taxpayer, it's $228,000. Now, when you've
Wow.
got a bank, what the shell game is this: the Treasury Department creates bonds and then they sell them, and then what's been happening is the central bank, the Federal Reserve, buys those Treasury bonds. And that's how money gets instantly created and put into circulation. Now, when we say money created, that doesn't mean they're printing money all the time. They could be just typing digits into a computer system, and that's how is what we're running the federal government. So now, when you look at this thing, so look at the tax revenue that's coming in and the national debt that's going out. Now, as we focus on this stuff, let's go down to the unfunded debt. It's kind of in the middle in the red, and then you see the total U.S. debt. And then when you look at the total U.S. debt, you've got below that on the left is the bank interest received. And that brings up a really good point, because when we talk about the Federal Reserve, it's a conspiracy, it's not a private bank. Well,
Yeah, it is.
kind of is, because if you think about this, and the Treasury is issuing Treasury bills or bonds, depending on the amounts, and selling those out on the open market. And the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be the federal government, but Federal Express is not a part of the government. So just you put the nomenclature of federal up there does not mean that it's part of the government.
Right.
Now, this is interesting because it's kind of a quasi government entity, and I'll explain further as we go. So, because if it was our own bank, why would we charge ourselves interest? Why would we pay interest to our own central bank that's creating the money out of thin air to begin with? See, if it was our bank, why would we charge ourselves interest? Then you
Right.
would eliminate a lot of the national debt or the interest payments anyway.
I mean, it would be like, have your own bank account and charge yourself for
Right.
your monthly charge and
So-
everything, just to put it in perspective.
So this is why we're kind of talking about money and what is inflation and what creates it. And it takes a little bit of progression into understanding what they're doing. Because if we look up different definitions of what inflation is, you've got supply and demand. So let's say that the gold is in short supply because there's mines are shutting down for whatever reason. Maybe they run out, they've dug all the gold up, and they need that in the economy. You might have a spike of price because of the supply.
Supply and demand,
Supply
yeah.
and demand. But what happens is that the economists confuse everything with what inflation really is. And inflation, by definition, if you go back to the dictionaries in 1800, was an increase in the supply of money. Okay, so we've got this bank that was actually kicked out of America 5 times prior to the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. And you can go back and look at this. You can go back and look at
So prior to it being adopted in 1913, it was basically even exchange. You know, you have something I want, I give it to you. There wasn't.
No, I mean, they created currency. But
Well, I mean, I have my silver coins, I give them to you. There wasn't somebody we gave it to. Or
there was
gave
no
it-
third party that was
Right,
charging
exactly.
us.
I guess that's what I'm trying to
that
say.
was
No
ch-
third party
that was
involved.
charging us interest on our money.
Right.
That's why the founding fathers, and we'll get more into that. But if you look at, so this bank was kicked out of America 5 times, a central bank, not the Federal Reserve, but they tried several times to get a central bank in. And it was successful. They got it in, and then Jackson, if you go back and you look, ran on his platform of running for the government for the presidency
office.
was no bank. Okay, so they've kind of taken a lot of stuff out of the history books on what was happening with this struggle. Now, if we go over to the right-hand column and you look at the different dollar to gold, dollar to silver ratios and so forth, the paper. So in 1913, if you can focus on the 1913 dollar to gold ratio was 29.5 per ounce. In other words, they had $29 in circulation for every ounce of gold that was backed by, okay? Because the notes were never supposed to be the money. It was supposed to be a representation of
the
the
money.
actual money.
Yeah.
They were never supposed to print more notes than they had actual gold backing it. Okay, that's
Right.
the gold standard. So now if we go back up one and we look at right above it, it says dollar to gold ratio now. You've got $21,000 now per ounce of gold that's supposed to be backing, and we don't even know if that's true.
Right.
Okay, so you can see from that they're dramatically increasing the money supply. Okay, and then if you go down a little farther under the gold, you see the silver. If you look at the paper to silver ratio, actually, I want to look at the I'm focusing here a little bit. So dollar to silver ratio was right above that on the 21,000. So dollar to silver ratio in 1913, they had $2.64. So $2.64 per ounce backing it. Now we've got $3,000 per ounce.
Right.
And we're not even sure how much of that is being backed. So everybody's confused by this, but if we drop down under the dollar to gold ratio in 1913, you'll see paper to silver ratio at 188 pieces of paper for every dollars. Or what they're talking about ratio is this is the derivatives that what they're doing is they're selling paper silver with no backing. Okay. And this is how they're controlling the market through the spot prices. So what they do is they're just selling paper that you can't collect any silver for.
Right. So
on the market.
if you took it $188 to them, doesn't mean you're going to get anything in exchange for
But
that.
what it does do with all of this is drives that price down, because if you looked at the canary in the coal mine per ounce of gold, we should have an ounce of gold right now should be $21,000 and an ounce of silver should be $3,000 based on the ratio of dollar to gold. Now,
but it is not like
or
that.
dollar to silver. It's
today.
not like that. And okay, so what I want to do is let's bring up the slide that is.
You know what was really scary about that too is those numbers just keep going.
Yeah.
They go very fast, and they
really-
just keep going. You know, if you're looking at the clock.
I really highly suggest that everybody take a look at that. Now, so what I want to look at is let's look at the Constitution. We've got the two at the bottom, Constitution 10, Article 1, Section 10, and then so this Constitution says, okay, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution, and it says limits the power of the states by prohibiting them from entering into treaties and so forth, printing their own money. All right, okay. And so this kind of lays it out a little bit, but go to the next one, and I want to show you the actual text, the one that was right below this. Yeah, this is from Cornell Law University, Cornell Law School. And if you read this text, what it says is that if I has been a citizen, representative, maybe chosen, blah, blah, blah. We got to go to clause 1. So we
Wait,
need.
we gotta go down to
section
section
10, clause
10?
1. Yeah, go down to section 10, clause 1.
Thank you.
All right. There we go. So now we look at this thing and we go, no state shall enter into a treaty, consideration, grant letters of marque, reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, or make anything but gold and silver tender in payments of debts. Okay. So what this basically said in the original Constitution is that gold and silver was the only legal money.
Okay.
And the reason it was the only legal money, now you might have representations of money, but it had to be backed, okay? That's why when we got the Federal Reserve, and then in 1971, they completely took us off the gold
Right.
standard. Now we've got a currency supply that's unlimited with no backing, all right? So what I want to do is how does that relate to now?
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. How did that get
Why is this
so changed?
Why is this a problem?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we got the Federal Reserve System in, you got the ability to print unlimited fiat currency as soon as we got off the gold standard in 1971 with Nixon.
Well, yeah, because there's no way to limit the amount to print because you don't have to worry about anything backing it. So you can just print.
So let's talk about this for a second. Let's go to the part where it says who owns the Federal Reserve. Okay, there's 2 sections. There's the fact check. Let's look at the fact checked one. So go to Sovereign Minds, back to our deal. And let's go to the fact check who owns the Federal Reserve right there. Yep, that's the one. One down. There you go. Who owns the Federal Reserve?
Probably don't actually know.
Now we're told that the government.
Well,
we're told that we own it.
they lead people to believe that the Federal Reserve is owned by the federal government of the
Okay.
United States.
So there are actually 12 different Federal Reserve banks around the country, and they owned by big private banks. Okay, but banks don't necessarily run the show. Nationally, the Federal Reserve is led by a board of governors whose 7 members are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Okay.
All right. So who are the 7?
Well, I mean, right now there's Powell, and there's a bunch of them. So, but that's not what I'm looking for here. The answer: the stockholders in the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks are privately owned banks that fall under the Federal Reserve System. So that tells you right there that it is owned by a private. Now, because
Right.
private banks are owned by somebody that owns that stock.
Right.
Okay, so they try to make this thing, so it's so confusing you don't understand. The concept of ownership needs some explaining here. However, the member banks must, by law, invest 3% of their capital as the stock.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they cannot sell or trade their stock. Who would want to? You have a bank here that can create currency unlimited
Right.
and buy notes with a 0 bank account balance and just write a check that creates the money into thin air, and then all of a sudden, you owe interest on every dollar that
Right.
they create. Why would you ever sell? Okay, so you cannot sell or trade their stock or even use the stock as collateral to borrow money. So they make it, it's not such a great deal. Yeah, they do receive a dividend of 6% from reserve banks to get to elect each board of directors. What? So you get a 6% dividend every year. Okay. Wow. So you just saw the debt clock. How would you like to have a 6% dividend based on, 28, $30 trillion?
Dollars?
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
private. It's all regulated. The private banks also have a voice in regulating the money supply. Yeah, they do, actually. So what's happening is that these guys are creating money out of thin air. It's called counterfeiting, okay? Now-
Well, that's what it should be called.
Well, because
But they don't call it counterfeiting.
the Federal Reserve legalized the act of counterfeiting. But remember, it said in the Communist Manifesto that they had a monopoly on it?
Right.
Well, these guys have a monopoly on counterfeiting. If me or you sat around, went down to our basement, and put on our green eye shade, and started counterfeiting money, then the feds would show up fairly quickly.
Oh, yeah,
the
and we
Secret
definitely
Service,
would
the
go to
Treasury
prison
Department,
for that,
and then you
yes.
would go to prison for
Yeah.
that because they don't want any competition. Now, back in the day, when they set the country up and they said only gold and silver is legal money, is for a reason, because it can't be counterfeited. Okay.
Right.
And in fact, if you look it up and you go back to the founders, they said that when they set the country up, that counterfeiting money was a death sentence. In fact, they would kill you for it.
Right.
If you were convicted of it, you could be hung.
Right.
All right. So how come all of a sudden it's okay to have a central bank that has been kicked out of the country 5 times that can now counterfeit unlimited amounts of money? Okay, and they're the only ones that can do it. And, of course, they are, part of the government. It says, at the bottom, it says, as a nation's central bank, the Federal Reserve derives its authority from Congress and is considered an independent central bank because its decisions have to be ratified.
By the president.
No. It's considered an independent central bank because the decisions do not have to be ratified by the president or anyone else in the executive, legislative, or any other branch. In other words, are they doing whatever they want and they don't?
But it says they're supposed to.
No, they're just appointed. So they're just appointed by these guys. Okay, they're not. So the owners are kind of hidden. Do you think that the guys that are being appointed to the board might be shareholders in some of the banks?
No.
Okay, so the point is, there's some shady stuff going on here. And you go back to the founders.
I love it. It says, however, the Federal Reserve is subject to oversight by Congress.
Yeah, that's good. Now, let me
How's
ask
that
you this:
working for us, folks?
if you had an unlimited supply of money, do you think you might buy a few people in Congress?
Maybe.
Because that's the danger to this. And this is why the Communist Manifesto said that it was imperative, as 90% of the road to communism had to have a central bank. Because now you've got an unlimited supply of money to buy whatever you want. Okay, you can counterfeit this thing with no oversight. You can buy TV stations. You can buy
it's
radio
unlimited, which you can
stations.
buy
You can
with.
buy countries. You can buy anything you want. You can buy congressmen. You can buy. So right now, if you looked at the Federal Reserve balance sheet, they own about 35% of the country. Okay. Is this all an accident? Is it just a mistake? Well, we got the Federal Reserve Act at the same time we got the Tax Act. 1913.
Yeah.
See, prior to that, there were no income taxes in America. It was illegal. The original Constitution said no direct taxes can be levied. Any taxes that shall be levied would be apportioned among the states. In other words, spread out at a percentage basis based on the population, not based on your income.
Right.
Okay. So with that said, so they actually changed that. Now you can't even find in the constitutions now. They don't even talk about the fact that we didn't have an income tax until 1913.
Right.
Okay. So do you think that it's a coincidence that we got an income tax in 1913 and the Federal Reserve was passed the same year in 1913? You have to have a mechanism to collect for the debt on the interest on the debt that they're creating out of thin air.
And you have to have a way to collect the income tax from people and take care of that, like you say.
So
we have to be in control of the money that's collected.
Well, because if I can create money out of thin air and charge interest on it, okay, then what'll happen is that you create an economy that has a never-ending debt and that's slavery, basically. I mean, there's several different kinds of slaves. We talk about the slaves out in the field working by the whip, but there's also what they call debt slaves. In other words, if I lend you money and you owe me money perpetually, and I can charge interest on the money that you owe perpetually to me, then basically
I control you.
The Bible says the borrower is servant to the lender,
right?
And the rich ruleth over the poor, the borrower is servant to the lender, and that's what they're talking about. Now, if I can print money out of thin air and lend it to you perpetually,
I'm still in control.
In fact, I've perpetually made you a slave.
Right.
So let's pull up the 1913
So, and it all goes back to property
Foreign.
and stuff. If you stop and think about it, banks
Yes.
and owning property, and you have to have your mortgage through the banks, and it
The
becomes
Federal Reserve is not the only one creating money. It's the Federal Reserve System as well, because now the banks are creating money out of thin air in their lending processes of too.
Right.
Now, we could pull up Nixon if you want to take a minute and type in Nixon gets us off the gold standard in 1971. I don't know if you can bring it up or not, but he basically said that he closed the window in 1971 to stop the conversion of our dollars into gold.
right.
And now the
Yeah.
debt has gone straight up since then. Okay. And yeah, there you go. So Nixon, I mean, it's pretty much provable that he stopped the convertibility of gold, dollars into gold. So because what's happening is the Treasury was being bled because of the war effort. They were spending and spending and spending on the war effort.
Right.
So they were having to send boatloads of gold off to other countries that they borrowed from, whether it's China or whatever. So it says right there, President Nixon's actions in 71 to win the dollar convertibility to gold and implement wage price controls was intended to address the international dilemma of a looming gold run on the domestic problem of inflation. Okay. Are we starting to see a correlation here? Okay. And inflation being an increase of the supply of money. So what's been happening is that we've also, dollars have been paying for stuff worldwide. They converted in the Bretton Woods system. You'll see it, the international monetary system in World War II was dubbed the Bretton Woods system after a meeting of the 44 countries in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. They agreed to keep their currencies fixed but adjustable to the dollar. That's a key phrase there, to the dollar. And the dollar was fixed to gold.
At a
See,
fixed
so
rate of $35 an ounce at that time.
The reason that's important is because when they did this, it stabilized the economies of the world, because now the dollar. So in order to buy oil in Saudi Arabia, for example, and you see that Europeans and Japanese exports became more competitive with U.S. The U.S. world output of it goes into the dollars and the oil and so forth. But you'd have to exchange your currency into dollars in order to buy oil in Saudi Arabia. So that's the world reserve currency status, which makes your currency much more valuable, and everybody wants to hold your dollar.
Right.
Now, if it's backed by gold, you can't just keep printing money. So when Nixon took us off the gold standard, he unleashed Pandora's box here to have unlimited money increasing in the supply of. Okay? So that is now the definition of inflation. So let's go back to our 1913 form. One more keep going. There you go. One more. There you go. So this is an actual income tax form in 1913. See, and this was, when they got the income tax, they reportedly, they purported to say that this was only a tax on rich people.
Right.
Okay?
That's what it was supposed to be.
That
was designed for
and
at that time, yes.
It was designed for nothing but a tax
Right.
on rich people. They said, and that's how they sold it. They said it's only a tax on the rich, and the rich were all bragging how much they paid in taxes. Now, let's scroll up.
Yeah, because back then that made your status, if you could say, I'm very rich because I paid.
I paid taxes. That's how
Yes,
rich I am.
exactly,
So
yeah.
go ahead and scroll up, Eli, and then you'll see the percentages right there. Okay, so you look at this. When the net tax is shown that it exceeds $20,000, the additional tax there will be calculated by the per schedule below. So number one, percent of amount not exceeding. So it was 1% over $20,000 not to exceed 50,000. Okay, so that's what you would be paying is 1%. How many people do you think in 1913 were making $20,000 a year?
Probably not very many.
Two guys in Idaho. Okay.
Yeah.
So the point is that the highest percent that you could possibly pay after deductions, by the way, this is net, is be 6% on 500,000 up. What do you think our tax rate is right now?
Oh, well,
If you were making 500,000,
500,000?
I think it's
Probably like what?
35%,
I
not
was
counting
gonna
state.
say
So if you had state,
37?
if you had state, you're probably closer to 40. They want to
Yeah.
raise that, and we're not talking about any other taxes. We're not talking about sales taxes, impost, tariffs, license fees,
Payroll taxes, any of that.
None of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I figured out that it could be as high as 84% on the money that you're bringing in.
Right. That's
Okay.
including all the taxes that we pay across the board.
Right. So now, let's go from 20,000 then to 20,000 now. How many people do you think are making 20,000 now?
Almost everybody, because if you don't make 20,000,
You're
you're
poor.
poor.
Yeah.
You're poor in today's standards.
So, what?
Yeah.
So over the last 100 years, have they been increasing the supply of money? Because remember, we started out with a 1-to-1 on the, or on the. If you go back to the, don't go back there, but looking back at the debt clock, how many dollars we had? $29 dollars per every ounce of gold.
Right,
That's how
right.
it was back. Now we come up to present day, we've got 39,000 or 3,900, and then it's like, I think it's 29,000 per ounce. Okay. So what that did was it creeped through the inflation, and the no backing has creeped everybody up into these brackets, and now they've also changed the bracket. So
Oh, yeah, they've changed.
now this
Dramatically.
was supposed to be only a tax on the rich. Is everybody now paying it, and then some?
Oh, yeah. Everybody.
By
I don't care who
inflation.
you are, you're paying tax somehow in some form.
Because they've inflated the currency. All right. Now, I'd like to, maybe you could pull this up, Eli. Pull up Alan Greenspan's college thesis. Yeah. Alan Greenspan, there you go, former chairman of the Federal Reserve. And then type in college thesis, I think is where you'll find it. All right, looking into college, long lost thesis, Barron's. Okay, so let's go in there. And we founded a copy. I don't know if we want to pay any money for it, but let's see if we can take a look at it. Okay, 277 articles, subsection reviewed here. Let's see if we can find his little 2 papers here. Blah 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 blah. Submitted. We were trickled out. I should have had this up a little sooner. Chapter previous. Keep going down. Go back. Let's. There's actually this is just a analysis of it. What I want to see is I want to see the actual thesis. I think this is it right here. Okay. Let's just keep going down here.
Well, it had about subprime lending.
No. Go back up. There's a. I want to see the actual thesis if we can find it. Okay. And that's not it. That's not it. See, they're kind of burying it a little bit here because it used to be able to just pull it right up. And assignments to professor. Maybe that's it.
To professionals.
Yeah.
Oh,
my
no,
goodness.
no.
I'll have to pull it up. But basically, it's got a really powerful statement in there. And
Let me see if I.
yeah, see if you can find that because it's really important to understanding what we're talking about. Alan Greenspan's.
Let's see what we can find.
While you see if you can find that, and just essay, help with writing. Yeah, it's interesting that it's not. It's called Gold. Okay, that's what you want to type in. Alan Greenspan, Gold and Economic Freedom. Type that in. Gold and economic freedom. Now, the reason this is important, that's it right there. Gold and economic
Did you get
freedom.
it, Eli?
All right. So this is important because he wrote this in 1967. And if you look at this and you read this, now this guy's talking about gold and economic freedom. Gold is what keeps us economically free. Now this is the guy that went to work for the Federal Reserve. See, I mean that one line, that gold and economic freedom are inseparable.
That's what he said.
The gold
67,
standard
yeah.
is the instrument of laissez-faire, which implies and requires, in other words, to everybody, you got to understand this in order to be free. Go ahead and scroll down, and a little farther. I want to. There's a chapter in here I want to read. It's keep going. Banking based on extended credit. Keep going.
Banking system.
Keep going. It's almost the last paragraph, I think.
Under the gold standard?
No, keep going. Keep going. Okay, right there. That's it right
In the
there.
absence of the gold standard?
In the absence of the gold standard, there is no way to protect savings from confiscation through inflation. This is an important thing to understand. There's no safe store of value. If there were, the government would have to make it holding illegal, as was done in the case of gold. They had to make it illegal to convert you to their cash system, because then you can't be inflation proof. If everyone decided, for example, to convert all of his bank deposits to silver or copper or any other good, and thereafter declined to accept checks as payment for goods, bank deposits would lose their purchasing power, and government-created bank credit would be worthless as a claim on their goods. The financial policy of the welfare state requires that there be no way for the owners of wealth to protect themselves. This is the shabby secret of the welfare state's tirades against gold. Deficit spending is simply a scheme of confiscation of wealth. Gold stands in the way of this insidious process. It stands as a protector of property rights. If one grasps this, one has no difficulty in understanding the statist antagonism toward the gold standard. Now, when you read that, it kind of brings it all together, doesn't it, from what
Yeah.
we're talking about? Because if the communists had to have a central bank that emits credit and eliminates other competition, gets rid of the gold standard, and they're in charge of the money supply, then you can't protect yourself from these guys, because they will. Inflation is a hidden tax. If you've got $100,000 in the bank and you think you're safe in a store of value, you worked your butt off, and they can
Right.
just keep printing money, and it devalues your currency supply. So let's say that you could buy 100 loaves of bread for $1 a piece, for $100, and they devalue with that, and the bread goes up to $2. Well, now you can only buy $50 worth
Right.
of loaf of bread. So it's a way of stealing your money out of your bank account. It's a hidden tax. And the only way that you could protect yourself from that is by having a gold standard. So either you couldn't print the money, or you had your gold out of the system, off somewhere where it couldn't be found,
Right.
whether it's in your safe or buried in a coffee can in the ground, whatever it is, because it can't be counterfeited.
Right.
Okay?
If you don't have the gold, you're not in control of anything.
Well,
They're able to-
that's the golden rule. You remember the golden
yeah,
rule?
whoever has the gold
Rules.
right. So, and people don't realize that actually you're not in control of any of your banking accounts or any of that. You are not safe, I should say.
You're not. You have no way to store value without
you're
it
not
being
safe
at risk.
after you've worked your butt off all your life or whatever.
Well, and then we'll give you a couple examples. If you looked under the Dodd-Frank Act, okay, if you go back into a global systemic banking institution inside the Dodd-Frank Act, what it says is that if they go under, they can confiscate all
Exactly
of your
that,
accounts anyway, and you get stock in a failed bank. So this is current law right now, is that you, and if the banking system goes under, then a lot of people are going to lose their life savings. Now, this has happened in Cyprus. I could show you a case study where this guy retired from Italy, and he had $1 million in the bank. They shut the bank down. He couldn't get to his banking account. And this has not just happened in one spot. It's been in Cyprus.
Been
It's
all
been in
over the
Venezuela.
world, yeah.
It's because what happens when you get a central bank that controls the monetary supply, it can be abused. Now, does it look like our current system is being abused?
Oh, yeah.
When we talk about a $6 trillion budget, where's that money coming from? Do you think you just walk around finding $6 trillion? No, they issue notes, they issue paper treasury bonds to the Federal Reserve, who then buys them with thin air digits,
Right.
types it into the banking system. They write a check basically that goes into the coffers of the government, and now they have an unlimited supply of money. And then they do things like they attack foreign countries. And I saw a thing the other day, for example, that Julian Assange, he said that Afghanistan was about filtering money through with an endless war to the kickbacks. See, what they do is they send money to Afghanistan, for example,
Right.
and then the kickbacks or the payoffs go to offshore accounts for whatever politician or government is on the take. and they
to
keep
get
their
their
cut.
power. Yeah.
And they keep their cut.
Right.
That's the reason that you want a central bank, is because you can control all the currency, you can control everything, you buy everything, you buy everyone, and without a banking or a
It
gold
puts you
standard.
totally in power.
Gee, do you think that's happening today? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
I mean, now when I read this,
I also want to say in here, people think with your money deposited in bank accounts these days, it's insured. I hear this so much. My money's insured for $250,000. No, it's not.
well, it's kind of insured the same way
You
that if the
It's not your money that's insured. I guarantee you, if
Well,
something
the
happens,
thing
you're
is-
not going to get it.
The thing is that they can shut down the bank and confiscate it under the Dodd-Frank Act. And do you know, if you looked at the figures on how much they can cover, how much do they have in reserves to
Cover if everybody pulled their money.
just to cover the fact that if the bank went under.
Right.
In other words, that's what the FDIC insurance is about. If the bank goes under, then they will make good those deposits up to those certain amounts. Right now, they have like 0.05 numbers in reserve to do that. So there is no insurance backing. There's no money
There's
backing
nothing
it.
there to back it. That's what I'm getting to. And people don't realize that because they go, oh, well, so what? Kind
Or-
of if something happens.
Or you keep printing money. And as you keep printing money, what happens to the price of goods and services? See, here's the definition of a hyperinflation. I think we can probably pull it up there in our cause and effects. Okay. Well, I think it's on one of our slides I gave you. Okay. Should be hyperinflation, definitely cause and effects.
And I
Okay.
also want to put in here, too, a lot of people don't know the difference between currency and money. Currency is just paper.
Well, there's fiat currency,
See, yeah.
which is no backing.
Right,
So you can have a currency that is a representative currency, like the
Right.
dollar used to be. In other words,
Like it used to be when we were on the gold standard, yeah. But I mean, in today's world, people think, oh, I have this paper
right.
dollar.
They've done studies where I've
but
seen
it's
where,
not really money. It's not money, folks.
They've done studies where I've seen like a guy on the streets out there, and he's got a candy bar, like a Snickers bar, and a 10-ounce bar of silver. And people are so screwed up, they took the candy bar instead of the bar of silver because they don't see a value there.
Right.
Even though it was worth 100 times what the candy bar was. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have been conditioned to think paper is money.
Exactly.
When you go back to paper is poverty, it's the ghost of money. It's not real money. This starts to make some sense,
Right.
Because you can have a representative paper dollar like a check or a dollar that was backed by gold, and then that stabilizes it because you can't keep creating it. When you talk about a fiat currency, what a fiat currency is zero backing, and the record for a fiat currency lasting in
Never has.
in an economic system is zero.
Yeah.
It has failed every
Well, and it-
single time, 100%.
Yeah, and it used to say on the
Silver certificate,
exactly
payable
That-
to the bearer upon demand, and gold
or silver. Yeah, and they took that
and
off.
You can look at the money. Well, they got rid of it.
Yeah.
So if we look at hyperinflation, is when prices of goods and services rise more than 50% per month. Okay, so that's when you've gone past the state the no return spot.
We're almost.
We're getting closer.
We're
see,
very
because-
close to
'cause,
that right now. If you look at things.
they asked Ernest Hemingway, what it was like to go bankrupt, and he says it was really slow at first, and then all of a sudden it was really fast.
Yeah,
Because
imagine
what
that.
happens is you go along and you're pretending yourself. You're using you're lying to yourself, pretending that you're going to be able to get out of it, and so you start to you're paying Peter to pay Paul,
Paul.
blah 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 blah. Well, when it gets to a certain point, when the interest rate overwhelms the fact that you can borrow any more money or get it from any other place, that's when it shoots up and you go bankrupt, and that's what a hyperinflation is. So you don't notice it at first, because at that rate, if you look at that, a loaf of bread cost one amount in morning and higher in the afternoon. But if this continues to happen, it doesn't take very long. It's like the rule of 7. If you double your interest, or you double your base amount every
24 hours.
every 24 hours, it doesn't take very long before that to shoot
Right.
through the roof, and a loaf of bread doesn't cost you $3 anymore. It costs you $150.
Yeah, there at the bottom it says, if it goes over 50% in 1 month.
So, causes of hyperinflation, two main causes. Okay, an increase in the money supply. That the former happens when a country's government begins printing money to pay for its spending, and as it increases the money supply, prices rise in a regular inflation.
Yeah.
Okay. The other cause, demand pull inflation, occurs when a surge in demand. So we're back to supply and demand. In other words, if the demand outstrips the supply, then that would send prices higher. But that's not really inflation. All that is an increase in the product cost. That's not the same thing. Inflation is an increase in the supply of money. They're conflating the two because when you're talking about one type of product, for example,
Right.
It could be lumber, but that doesn't cause an inflation across the board. You have an increase in the cost of lumber if there's a shortage of trees. Okay, so but if you have a inflation where somebody's trying to pass a bill for $6 trillion with money that they created out of thin air that they sold treasury notes for that they charge interest on in a private bank that's owned by a lot of other people besides the American people, and they only get 6% because it's such a raw deal for them.
Yeah, they're not making any money.
Yeah. And they won't reveal who the shareholders are. Yeah. So what's going on? But when you have this increase in supply of money and it's dumped into the system, there's more money out there chasing goods and services, and it takes a little while for the money velocity to catch up with the supply, and pretty soon the dollars become worthless, and thus you lose your bank account and your store of value.
Right. Well, just like I said with Hemingway, you can start seeing it now with what's going on. It's starting to ramp up and go pretty
Right.
quickly if you look around a little bit.
No, and let's just put all that aside. Let's just say we're never going to hyperinflate. We're just conspiratorial theorists that are screwed up, and we don't know what's going on. Is it right that we should be paying interest on our own money? Is it right that we have a system that rapes us through or enslaves us to an interest rate for people who do nothing more than created the currency in the first place?
It does nothing more to make us slaves of them.
Why?
Why would we allow somebody to do that?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Because now we go back to Thomas Jefferson. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and the corporations will grow up around the banks, will deprive the people of all their property until the children wake up homeless in the lands that their fathers conquered through taxes and inflation, and the issuing power should be restored back to the people where it belongs. And then the next quote is, I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and the principles of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is swindling for the future on a large scale, because that's what they're doing. When they borrow this money, they indebt our children and our children's children. So that everybody's in debt to this big, huge, debt that we owe interest on every single dollar that they created out of nothing. Is that a problem?
You think? Maybe a little bit.
Now,
and that way you can never get wealth. You can,
well,
if you stay in that system.
Unless you're one of the boys.
Yeah, unless you're one of them. And if you're not paying attention to stuff, there's no way. People think, oh, I got my property, I've got my boat, I've got my car. But really, you don't really own any of that if you allow this to keep going on.
Absolutely, because you'd be deprived. Now we go back to Adams. All the perplexities, confusion, and distress in America arise not from defects in their Constitution or Confederation, not from the want of honor or virtue, so much as from the downright ignorance of the nature of coin, credit, and circulation. Now that makes a lot more sense now that you start to understand some of this stuff, because the real deal is this is the root cause. Now there's a bunch of other stuff going on here, but if you have a bank that can buy everyone and everything, okay, then you've got people who are in charge. Now, maybe the guy that originally started had some pure-hearted motives. This was all for the best of everybody. But what happens when he dies? What happens
Well-
when his son takes over? Who inherits these shares? You can't sell them. I'm pretty sure there's a clause that says
Yeah, that doesn't
you
mean
can't
that everybody that inherits or touches them is a good person and has your best interest at heart, because we don't even know who they are, what kind of people they are.
And that's transparency.
Yeah.
Okay? Now I've got another quote here. This is from Lord Acton. He was a guy, that lived from 1834 to 1902. First Baron Acton of Alderham. The issue that has swept down through the centuries, which will have to be fought sooner or later, is the people versus the banks. Now, why would people say these things? Why? I mean, just out of the blue, and it's all a big accident. And why would all of this stuff be deleted from our education system?
Well, you couldn't tell the children the truth about how this works, because then you wouldn't allow it to happen. I like, if you read number 4 down there, it says demand pull inflation can also cause hyperinflation. Soaring prices cause people to hoard, creating a rapid rise in demand, causing too few goods.
See, what they're doing is that's a symptom of the...
And do we see that happening right now
because-
in today's world?
Because what happens is this whole thing, when it implodes, is a confidence thing. It's
if
about...
you lose the confidence,
You lose confidence in the currency, then what happens is you start to lose confidence in the government and its ability to
protect you and help you.
all of it.
Yeah.
But then you start worrying about, am I going to be able to feed my kids next month because a loaf of bread is $150? I might want to store some stuff away. I might want to pack some toilet paper away just in case, because I don't like not being able to use toilet paper.
Right. And you can see that happening more and more right now. I mean, with the hoarding, if anything happens, go back to the toilet paper thing. People, they freaked out because they lost the confidence in what was going on.
So they're trying to say that the stockpiling creates the shortage. No, that's crap. What creates the shortages is that there's no price discovery mechanism anymore. When you start to do this, what happens is there's no price discovery because a guy doesn't know what to charge for his goods in the morning and the afternoon. Because if you're a loaf of bread and you're buying some toast at the restaurant, and this morning it's $50 for a loaf of bread, and tomorrow and this afternoon it's $100. Okay, so then you have to raise your prices because tomorrow it might be $150. So
and we see that going on now in the world. If you're paying attention, you go lumber, anything like that now.
What you do is you start to buy it at the cheaper price. You're saying, if I know it's going to be $150 or
if you
$1,
can get it.
If I can, that's right.
If you can get it.
If I can get it. So what I better do is I better buy 10 loaves of bread today. Okay. So it's not that it's not. See, it's the cause of it is the printing of the money. It just takes a while for it to catch up with all the goods and services, and this happens across the board. It's not a matter of the hoarding that's causing the problem. See, they're trying to make the people that are hoarding they're the responsible ones. When the real deal is
that's not the way I took it. I took it that it causes people to do, like you say, to buy stuff if they can. But we see this going on now, especially in the lumber industry. Anybody that is relying on getting their product,
right,
whatever their service is. I mean, look at the construction, like you say, one day, sheet of plywood is $20 and the next day it's $95.
Right.
Who can stay in business,
Well, that's why that if you look around in the construction industry out here, they're afraid they won't do a bid because
on
they're
materials.
afraid on materials because it's fair market value because it's changing constantly.
Yeah, they can't.
So it causes all these anomalies in the marketplace to occur, and it becomes a big, huge problem. And when it gets so bad that the end result of this is the economy collapses.
Yeah.
Okay. And it has happened over and over and over again. You might, I'm not sure what our time frame is.
We got about 2 minutes.
You might type up there, type of Zimbabwe Cato Institute inflation example. It's kind of fun doing it this way. I'm getting used to Zimbabwe.
I'm not sure if
and then
it keeps Eli very busy back there. That's for sure.
Put Cato Institute. Yeah, CATO. Cato Institute, right? Okay, so they did a study on inflation. Go ahead and hit that right there. Zimbabwe, Cato Institute. Yeah, scroll down. So this kind of gives you some time frames on what happens. So they're right now. Keep going. And it on their chart
look
there.
at
So
Zimbabwe.
you look at let's stop there.
the
Hungary,
numbers.
it says time required for prices to double every 15 hours. Zimbabwe, it was doubling every 24 hours. So these are examples of
Right.
of what happens with when you keep printing the inflation, and the new hyperinflation
It goes very quickly when you stop and think about it. Any of those numbers is very quick.
Scroll up again, and you'll see how what happened in Zimbabwe here, and you look at these numbers, it shows you month over month rates of inflation and what the dollar was worth. So in March of 2007, they had a 2,200% inflation rate. So what this translates into is in March, a cup of coffee cost you $3, and in November of 2008, a cup of coffee cost you $3 trillion. Because you see how it works as it starts to gradually go up.
Yeah, look in 18 months, the numbers.
All of a sudden, when it doubles, it starts doubling and going dramatically in this particular example. And I have, you can buy, I used to be able to buy them online, Zimbabwe dollars. I got like 3 bills. One was $1, one was a cent, and one was 11 trillion, I think. I still have them at my office because you could get them.
It doubled.
Well, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
if you start,
and then watch it from that point to the 18-month. It's like, wow.
See, this is the danger of what they're doing now. If we've got Mr. Joe China up there doing the bidding of China, and he's trying to sink our economy by doing this, getting rid of the world reserve currency, which is starting to happen or has already happened, and that devalues our dollar. And then you keep devaluing it by unlimited amounts. Do you know how much $1 trillion is? It's insane, and so
you can go to the moon or something back.
I don't even know.
Or something.
They have different examples that we could look at, but I think we're out of time.
Oh,
that went fast.
yeah, it sure did.
But there could be more to cover on this, but I think you guys get the idea of what this is about and what the danger is with our current administration and in the past administrations, and why we need to at some point change this and get back to, and maybe we'll talk about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin could be also an alternative to this because it's not controlled by the central banks of the governments.
And that would be a good subject in the future. That's for sure.
All right.
And just I want last thing is people think these stimulus checks that they're getting and all that, they're all worried about it, and it's a great thing. Stop and look at this and the money and how much they're putting in.
I guess
just think about it a little bit.
It doesn't matter if you're indebting your children or your grandchildren to a slave system, because they'll just keep owing more money.
Right.
Yeah.
Just say, take a look at it. So with that, I guess we're out of time.
I guess we're out of time. Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force, and force like fire is a dangerous servant and a fearful master.
We will see you next week. We are coming on at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock, folks. So it'll be 11 o'clock from now on. So have a great week, and we will see you next time.
Very good.